Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a classic business comeback story. SunMoon Food Company just dropped their latest financial report, and it shows a really dramatic pivot from losing money to actually making a profit. So the big questions are, how did they do it, and can they keep it up? That's exactly what we're here to find out. Let's jump in.
We're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll hit the headline news, that incredible swing from the red into the black. Then we'll put on our detective hats and figure out how they pulled it off by looking at sales and profits. After that, we'll check if this is really sustainable by digging into their cash management. And finally, we'll take a peek at their game plan for what comes next.
All right, let's get right to it. The main event, the one number that tells the biggest, most important story in this entire report.
And here it is, clear as day. In the same 6-month window last year, SunMoon was in the hole, posting a net loss of $316,000. Now look at this year. They've completely flipped the script to a net profit of $61,000. Okay, so $61,000 isn't a giant fortune, we got that. But the swing from a $316,000 loss, that is absolutely massive. It tells you that something fundamental and positive has changed in the way this business operates. So what exactly did they do to make this happen?
So the million-dollar question, how did they do it? You know, a turnaround like this is never just luck. It always starts with a top line. How much stuff are you actually selling?
So the first piece of the puzzle is right here, revenue growth. As you can see, their sales jumped by a solid 17%, going from $17.6 million up to $20.6 million, mostly driven by fruits and chemical products. So step 1 was pretty simple, sell more. But that's not the whole story, not by a long shot. Because just selling more doesn't automatically mean you're making more money, and this is where it gets really interesting.
Now this is the real engine behind the turnaround. While revenue went up 17%, which is good, look at what happened to their gross profit. It absolutely exploded. It jumped from just $282,000 all the way up to $890,000. That's a mind-boggling 216% increase. This shows crystal clear that SunMoon wasn't just moving more product, they were making way more profit on every single thing they sold. And that is the difference between just growing and growing profitably.
Okay, to really nail this down, let's quickly talk about a super important idea, gross margin. Just think of it like this. For every dollar you make in sales, the gross margin is the change you have left in your pocket after you've paid for the item you just sold. A higher gross margin means your products are more profitable, and that leaves you with more cash to cover all your other costs. You know, like salaries, rent, and all that. It's a critical health check for any company selling physical stuff.
So, here's the kicker. SunMoon's gross margin more than doubled, leaping from a slim 1.6% all the way to 4.3%. This right here is the rocket fuel that powered that whole flip from loss to profit. The report says it's thanks to 2 things, that higher sales volume we just saw and, this is the key part, improved product margins. Now that could mean a few things. Maybe they got better deals from suppliers, or they shifted to selling more high-end products, or maybe they just raised prices. Whatever they did, it clearly worked, and it completely changed their financial story.
Okay, so we've established they're profitable now. That's fantastic. But, you know, a profit on paper isn't everything. Is the company actually generating real cash? Is its financial foundation solid enough to keep this growth going? To figure that out, we have to look beyond the income statement and check out their cash flow.
This number you see here, this is a big deal. Over the last 6 months, SunMoon's core business, just the day-to-day stuff of buying and selling, generated $811,000 in actual cash. This is a huge green flag. It tells us that the profit we saw isn't just some accounting magic. It's backed by real money flowing into the company's bank account. This kind of positive cash flow is what you use to pay your bills, reinvest in the business, and build a safety net. It's the sign of a healthy working operation.
This slide gives us a really cool peek into how a growing business has to juggle its cash. Let's just walk through it real quick. First, their inventories are up. That's a good thing. It means they're stocking up because they expect to sell more. It's a sign of confidence. Second, their payables are up. This just means they owe more money to their suppliers, which, makes total sense if they're buying more stuff to sell. And finally, their cash balance grew. That's from the money they're making, but also from a new interest-free loan from what's called a related party, usually an owner or a sister company. It all shows a company that's actively and pretty skillfully using all the tools it has to fuel its own growth.
So we've seen that SunMoon pulled off a pretty impressive financial turnaround. They're growing again, they're profitable, and they're generating cash. So the last big question is, where do they go from here? Let's see what the people running the show have to say about the future.
This quote from their outlook is super telling. Management is being really straight with us here. They're saying, hey, the huge market in China is tough right now. People just aren't spending as much. But they're not just throwing their hands up. They have a clear plan: pivot. They're going to focus on exporting food from China to markets in Southeast Asia. This is a big strategic shift, basically moving away from a tough home market to what they hope will be a better place to grow in the neighborhood.
And so, that leaves us with the big, final question. We've seen how SunMoon combined more sales with much better profitability to pull itself out of a loss. We've seen that the business is on solid financial ground and is generating the cash it needs to grow. Now, it all comes down to execution. Can this big bet on Southeast Asia be the thing that keeps this amazing turnaround story alive? Well, that's the question everyone will be watching. Thanks so much for tuning in.